Happy New Year, everybody. I hope you're doing well, and welcome to my new channel. My name is Evan Thomas, and I'm going to be the host of this channel, which is probably going to be called Retirement Retreat, or maybe Evan's Retirement Journal. I haven't quite figured that out yet. So work with me here. I need some time to kind of figure that out, but I'm actually no stranger to podcasting and YouTube. In fact, I have another YouTube channel, which is all about ASMR. Do you guys know what ASMR is? It helps people relax. So I figured I would create another channel about retirement and about money. The other one's about money too, but this one's going to be focused mainly on retirement topics. So I hope you continue to watch. This is episode number 1 on New Year's Day. Can you believe it? We're already to 2026. I'm turning 60 years old February 2nd. On Groundhog Day. Yes, when I was born, my grandfather said I looked like a groundhog, and I was 6 weeks early, and he used to tease me and said that I was born, and I looked around and I went back in and said, you know what, I'm not ready yet. I need more time to figure this out. And in retrospect, it's kind of like I needed more time to figure out money too, because I essentially was a financial train wreck when I was younger, but I eventually figured things out, and that's what this channel is going to be all about, is helping people figure out what they may be doing wrong with their money, just like I have on my other channel. But again, this one's focused more on retirement. So this episode is titled, I think, How I Reached Financial Independence at Age 58. I'll figure that out later when I create all the titles and the thumbnails and everything. But I think it's going to be called How I Reached Financial Independence at Age 58. And I retired shortly thereafter. So today I'm going to take you back. I mean, you need to get to know who Evan is a little bit before we can move forward. I created the name Evan Thomas because I was looking years ago for a persona of somebody I could kind of emulate and look up to, because again, I was a financial train wreck. And so I decided to become something I wasn't, becoming Evan, right? I saw Evan as this person that was really great with money, very smart, knew exactly what to do. And I educated myself, like I want many of you to educate yourselves if you're not really good with money. And I eventually figured things out. I'll never forget when it actually happened, as far as the bug being planted inside of me, where I said, I'm going to figure personal finance out. I was in Seattle, Washington on a business trip up into the Space Needle, looked out over Mount Rainier, and I said, Evan, you've got to go home and figure out personal finance. Otherwise, you're going to be a train wreck when you're 50 or 60. And so that's exactly what I did. I flew back home and I started to learn about personal finance. The first thing I found was the Suze Orman Show on CNBC on Saturday night. Some of you might be familiar with her, of course. She was on the air for many years. I think she started in 2002. She's got lots of books out there, of course. I watched it every single Saturday night. I bought her book, The Young, Fabulous, and Broke. I read it cover to cover. Was so obsessed with it that I eventually became a guest on her show in 2012 on the How Am I Doing segment. I'll talk more about that a little bit later. At that point in my financial independent journey, I had a $200,000 net worth. I was 46 years old, and of course I just mentioned to you I'm going to be 60 here in another month or so. More on that later. I'll give you all the details of what she told me to do, what I decided to do, etc. So 29, however, let's go back even further. At age 29, I claimed bankruptcy. I know, it's not something I'm proud of. I hate to even talk about it, but I was a financial train wreck. And, you know, I went to school in Ohio. I'm from Ohio. I live in Florida now, by the way. Through college, I studied video. I love video, which is why I love YouTube. But I decided to spend a bunch of money for some reason. I was getting credit cards in the mail, just spending left and right, had no idea what was going on, didn't even know how I was going to make it the minimum payments, etc. I remember as I got closer to age 29 and then I lost a job, I would open up my credit card statements, kind of set them aside, and just didn't even think about it. And I remember a family member asked me, they said, Evan, how much debt do you have? And I said, I don't know. I had no clue. I never really added it all up. That's how much in denial I truly was about my own financial situation. So I decided to claim bankruptcy. I remember the judge looked at me and said, Evan, are you ever going to do this again? And I said, no. I learned my lesson. I'm never going to do this again. And I didn't. So by the time I get into my 30s, I got a job with a really great company. I was a trainer with a financial services organization, not personal finance. It was something totally different and unrelated, but it gave me the awareness of things like accounting, the training, which is why, again, I love YouTube, etc. I like to help people. It was really the beginning of me coming to terms with what had happened, getting more money, because I started to get more money in my paychecks, but I was living paycheck to paycheck from age 29 to age 40. It was only at age 40 when I would look at my budget and I would plug in the numbers, and I'll talk about my budgets a little bit later, where I realized that I had extra money that I didn't want to put into the fun bucket, and so I started to save and invest. Just to give you some background on my income, I know people always want to know, like, how much money did you make, etc. I wasn't making $300,000 or $200,000. I only made $100,000 a year at the end of my career. I think it was about 115 to 120 the last year that I worked, which was age 58, 2024. And back in 2005 and 2006, I think it was about $40,000. I was never in management. I never managed people. I was just a trainer with this company. But they gave really good raises every year, 3, 5, 10% sometimes. And because when I joined the company at age 32, I saw a bunch of people that have been with the company for many years, I was like, okay, Evan, you can finally put your past aside. You've got a good company now. Arrive early, leave late, convince them that they need you rather than you need them, all those kinds of things. And because I was making a little bit more every single year, rather than inflating my lifestyle, I put that into my savings and my investing. So my savings rate continued to go up and up and up from that point for, 15 to 16 years into the future. So I basically built everything in those 15 or 16 years. I'm not going to tell you exactly how much I've got right now, so keep coming back. I will share that most likely eventually. I did happen to live through the biggest bull market in the history of the United States, right? After the recession in 2008. That's when I was 42 years old. I was starting to make more money, as I just mentioned. And so I just kept sinking money into my investments. Now, many of you, if you're a little bit younger, we don't know what the future is going to bring in terms of what type of returns you'll get within the S&P 500 and all those kinds of things. So I never really chased returns, and we can't do that, but you can control what you can control. And so I've decided to focus on what I could control. And what could I control? Keeping my expenses down, getting my income up every year, just a little bit. So that became my motto as I continued on. So maybe I wouldn't have gotten to $1 million. Maybe I would have gotten to 800,000 or something. Who knows? With the difference in the market returns. So switching gears, and I'll close out this episode here in just a couple of minutes. I also wanted to give you an idea, not only of what I just shared with you, like I was broke. When did I start investing? About age 40. I had the bankruptcy. I learned my lesson. Wasn't making much money through the years, but I knew what to do with the money that did come. I also wanted to spend a few minutes and talk about what type of vehicles that I put my money into, because it's not rocket science, right? It's not hard. So I don't want anybody to think it's really difficult. And of course, if you are in your 40s, you probably already have a lot of this figured out if you're interested in retirement, etc. But to share with you what I did, it was essentially what I call the fabulous 4. I had my 401k, which I leveraged. I had a Roth IRA, a taxable account, and my health savings account. So those were the only 4 vehicles that I ever put money into. A little bit later, I'll get into tax implications. One thing I'm learning right now, as an early retiree, I am now figuring out taxes. It's like you learn things just in time, right? When you need them. So I started learning about taxes. But it was essentially these 4 vehicles that I put my money into, and I'll share with you a little bit later how much I was putting in, etc. So with that, everybody, I think I'll go ahead and close out this episode. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it, and I will see you next time.